Let's move on to Coinbase.
Are you aware of the rumors that were circulating that Coinbase was effectively selling paper Bitcoin to BlackRock? Really, there was no evidence for it. It was just pure speculation. Not sure what all this is about, to be honest. All the ETF mints and burns we process are ultimately settled on chain. And they are revising this to where they're actually going to publish this on chain now. So we're aware of how many Bitcoin BlackRock is actually holding as part of the ETF.
I don't believe in really, unless there's some sort of smoke somewhere, rumors or what could be. I don't really care. I trust that the people are telling me the truth until something shows me.
Yes. Mikey, I went down the rabbit hole for Coinbase this week.
Educate me.
So what's fascinating is that the bottom line is there is no document you can point to that proves that on chain they're settling the Bitcoin. All we have is what Coinbase is saying, and then we also have what the SEC regulations are for a Bitcoin ETF to exist, and it needs to settle. It needs to be able to settle in a verifiable. It has to be settled in a verifiable way, cryptographically verifiable way. But there is no. There's something that shows that, and I think someone was even some people in our comments were mentioning it, and I totally understand. I thought they were wrong. I was like, no, there has to be somewhere where that the Bitcoin is actually being settled on chain, and it turns out that it's not the case. In fact, the only 21 shares, their ETF, they're not showing anything that's settled on chain. They're showing that it is proof of reserves, where the wallet addresses are visible, and you don't know for sure if this is where the crypto is being settled, but at least they're showing that they have some Bitcoin there.
Mm-hmm.
However, this is where the whole Occam's razor comes into play. Let's say they're not settled on chain. Let's say they are doing it in dark pools and they're settling it that way. Okay, fine. The downside for them doing this wholesale for all crypto is like massive. Like the amount of the issues that they'll run into long term would be the collapse of Coinbase. And we do have proof of them settling or dealing with crypto transactions on the blockchain, because as a regular user, you can go into Coinbase and see that and get the audit that shows the transaction that matches what you did on Coinbase. So you can actually go check that on the. So they do have the mechanism to settle on chain. The question is, why aren't they showing it? Now, Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, did say, "Hey, what are we going to do? Publish the addresses of all institutional clients so that you guys all get to see that?" Like, that's not going to happen. And that's, I can understand that as being fair, because we totally accept that from banks, right? Banks don't have to show all the details of the transactions, and we wouldn't want them to do that. And so where I'm settled right now, there's no proof either way, but where I'm settled right now is that it seems to me that they are doing some kind, or stands to reason they're doing some kind of fractional reserve system where they don't actually have to settle all of it right away, and they're playing some sort of like numbers game where they only really need to, I believe, is in 365 days. That's where like I think that's when the SEC has to like audit it, or they have to prove what they're doing. And so it could be that within any given month or so, or any given quarter, that they're not actually settling on chain right away. But it was fun because the everyone who's against it, who says that Coinbase is going to fail tomorrow and that they're lying and it's paper Bitcoin, there's no proof of that, and there's also no proof of that they are settled on chain. It's all speculation one way or another. But if you deposit money into Coinbase, you can pull out the money. So
true. I feel like those two are two different topics, though. Worrying the conversation around being able to pull your crypto off of Coinbase is one problem, and I do agree that there are thousands of instances of that happening, and plenty of people who've submitted their view and their evidence showing that Coinbase has either been unresponsive or unwilling to respond to them on the subject of their funds. That's a problem. I don't know why that problem exists, but that's a problem. On the other hand, the implications that an ETF that is supposed to be backed by an underlying asset that they advertise the implication that that isn't real is a huge problem, because then that would represent the value of the ETF would be represented by invisible money, right? Invisible value. Investors are not going to like the idea that they don't actually own Bitcoin when they buy into a Bitcoin ETF. And that is a serious problem. Now, of course, we can make the crypto argument, which is a very common argument, that you should always keep your own crypto in your own wallet, and you should keep it secure and keep it away from banks and institutions. And this is a tough one for me, because I think that there are lots of people in the traditional finance space that aren't quite ready to make that leap. They're not quite ready to jump onto the blockchain and figure out how to manage an offline wallet or a hardware wallet. This is a foreign concept for them. What they have are 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old brokerage accounts. And now suddenly there is access to this potential exposure to an asset class that they've never really touched before. And I feel like we need that, because that represents another form of liquidity that helps the value of crypto overall. And I want to support, all venues, all roads that lead to crypto as a serious asset class. But whether or not Coinbase is participating in a legal process with BlackRock, and they're doing it appropriately, that's a tougher one for me, because what I'm hearing you say is, like, on one hand, there's no evidence for the claim that they're selling they're selling BlackRock paper Bitcoin, but then on the other hand, they don't have evidence to prove that they aren't doing something shady. And it feels like a bit of a quandary here, where, what part of the story do we trust here?
What I care is the ramifications of it. And so, because I was trying to work through, let's say they are doing paper Bitcoin. Let's say all of the Bitcoin to do with the ETFs, and they're taking care of a lion's share of the ETFs. Let's say that it is that it's paper. What we would see is that the price of Bitcoin is not moving in relationship to the amount of funds that are floating into the ETF, and we are seeing that. We're not seeing that the inflows and outflows of the ETFs are actually doing anything to the price of Bitcoin. I would have expected a large rise in the price of Bitcoin as they're forced to buy the crypto on the markets. How much Bitcoin is on the in dark pools that they can actually buy before it actually has to hit the chains. We're not seeing that.
Yeah.
The thing is, if it is, the question is this an FTX type situation, right? And that's what to me seems very unlikely. And the only part that makes me sort of concerned is that BlackRock, after this whole thing with Coinbase in the news cycle, amended their agreement with Coinbase to say that they need to be able to withdraw Bitcoin within a 12-hour period, something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question around that is like, well, why did they have to put that in now? Like, are they putting that in now because they're worried about it and they want to make sure that they're front of the line for any Bitcoin that needs to come out? Like, why would they need to do that? Why wouldn't that have been done before? And was it assurances that were given to them beforehand that they didn't, and now they're actually more concerned? And so the timing of that BlackRock modification, the cost modification, was suspicious. It was very suspicious. I was like, well, why would you actually need that assurance, and why would it be so public about it?
Mm-hmm.
But then if it was really a problem, you would imagine, well, they would just stop it. But then you go, well, they can't stop it because it would be more embarrassing that they started the ETF and all that sort of thing. So I get the conspiracy theory here. But hands off to the people in our comments who let us know, hey, by the way, there is something potentially going on over here. You guys might want to take more of a look into it.
Yeah.
Was totally correct. And it was a very fun 3 days of going through every single Reddit post and tweet and article and news clipping about it, because the amount you can read and not have any information, I go, okay, no wonder there's tons of people being skeptical.
I love it. And I feel like a lot of our commenters have a considerable amount of experience in this space, like well beyond the experience I have. There's no question. Some of these people are very, very passionate about the space. And I like and invite all of those opinions. I think that there's a lot to take away from that and a lot to think about. So it's been a fun discussion, especially since last week.
There is one specific thing, though, that I do find suspicious on the other side. Is that not suspicious, but there were people in the comments saying that p- uh, thousands to millions of people are dissatisfied with Coinbase, and tons of people can't remove their money from the Coinbase platform. So I was like, okay, let me go see there. When I couldn't take off money off the FTX platform, I mean, I saw posts everywhere. People were sharing their screenshots and all the
Right.
information that I can't remove my money. Same thing with Celsius. The same thing happened as well. I barely saw any of that with Coinbase. I mean, almost none. And the ones that I did find all seem to be sort of like, well, you could sort of understand why that's the case. Like they had put their money in before the anti-money laundering laws or regulations were put in at Coinbase, and so now they're withdrawing it. There's this holding period. Some people said, "Oh, it took a long time, but I then got it." But it wasn't thousands. It wasn't dozens of posts I saw, and I was expecting just through a course of customer service to find dozens and dozens of these posts. So I tried looking. I really tried looking, and I could not find anything to that effect. Which to me is like part of the signs of like insolvency or any or the problems that they're talking about.
I think that's the right way to look at it. I mean, there was definitely overwhelming evidence with FTX when that took place, and the market responded appropriately too. I mean, you knew it was real the moment that there was massive sell-offs in Solana, massive sell-offs on all the top market cap cryptos, all went down at the same time, and it just kept selling. That caused a fairly large panic that I think was the signal that something real was going on here. So even markets, measuring markets and the market response is another way to look at this as well.
That's right. And if we take a look at the Coinbase ticker, it's still mapping basically to Bitcoin. I love charts. Like, okay, if I've seen a big thing over there, then I know, okay, potentially there's something in the background that
Sure.
we should be paying attention to. All right, so we'll leave it at that. Any new information on the Coinbase stuff, I'll make sure to keep you up to date because I'm fascinated now. But
Yeah, and I appreciate the comments too. Please leave some more. Give me some insight here on your views on Coinbase, and ultimately I would love opinions around whether or not we should be supporting ETFs that are backed by Coinbase as well, and what the appropriate process should be there.
yeah, you guys were worded it very nicely. I love the comments that were there. We got one from I mean, I'm always suspicious of a name and then a bunch of numbers after that, but I like what they said, just to be transparent. And those rumors won't start in the first place. These two need to get out more. Coinbase has a history of doing all kinds of shady stuff. And then we also had the next quote from next comment. My next favorite comment: "It's easily debunked. Show us the transactions because we cannot find them." And that's what sent me down the rabbit hole of okay,
Where are they? Yeah.
where are the transactions?
Well, we already know that Tom never leaves the house anyway. He would prefer to stay indoors. And I work quite a bit. So you're right. We don't get out much. We need to get out more. There's no question about that.
As far as I'm concerned, if we can just come on here and make all kinds of false statements, and then the comments do the work of sending us information, I think that should be the process that we
It's a good
follow.
way to educate ourselves. Yeah.